any foreign government tries to impact the integrity of our elections, that we need to take action.
As the election campaign was in full swing, the National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, told the team to stand down, stop working on options to counter the Russian attack.
The National Security Advisor, President Obama, tells them to stand down, back off, and essentially in the end, they did practically nothing.
But as far as your cyber response, you were told to stand down. Is that correct?
We were, those actions were put on the back burner, yes.
When I saw President Putin in China, I felt that the most effective way to ensure that that didn't happen was to talk to him directly and tell him to cut it out.
I think the Obama administration should have done a lot more. I think the administration needed to call out Russia earlier and needed to act to deter and punish Russia earlier. And I think that was a very serious mistake.
Are you disappointed in the reaction from the Obama administration to Russian meddling?
In my opinion, he didn't do enough.
There was smoke in the kitchen, and the response was to open the windows when we needed a fire extinguisher.
Do you think that the Obama administration choked?
Yes.
If you actually think this is a big deal and you're not just using it as a way to go after Donald Trump, you should be demanding accountability commissions for the previous president and those intelligence chiefs.
I think we handled it the way it should have been handled.
Hunting terrorists in the skies above Baghdad, there are two things you need: faith in God and a Hellfire missile.
Conservative warrior John James.
I flew Apaches because I wanted to take the fight to the enemy. Now I'm volunteering for a new fight, to secure the borders, defend our constitutional rights, and protect Michigan jobs. I'm John James. I hate politics, but I love this country, and I approve this message because America is worth fighting for.
Hello, welcome for Fighting for the Republic. Please join on DLive, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and we're hopefully YouTube. That is a possibility because I'm back on. Let's hope. So how is everybody doing? I hope everybody's having a very good Friday. It's actually Labor Day weekend, and hopefully you're gonna have cookouts and have fun and not be around dim shit Democrats who want to ruin that fun. There is a ton, and I mean a ton of stuff I got. And you want to know you want the honest truth? I have no idea where to start because there's so much. Let me look at this really quick. Okay. Now we got okay. We'll start there. That looks pretty good. It's a good place. With the shenanigans that Judge Sullivan's doing in a Michael Flynn case, you just don't know where this is going. It's eventually going to be dropped, and without any doubts. The good question is when, because now he has his own attorney, which is, I'm not even going to say the word because I've heard it forever. I'll say it this one time, unprecedented, because it seems like everybody uses that word. So, what has happened? Well, here, let's let Jay Sekulow actually explain this. What's going on now with
breaking news that we just got, and that is the D.C. Court of Appeals has denied General Flynn's emergency bid to force the dismissal of the criminal charges against him. You'll remember that was involving the Department of Justice coming in saying that those cases should never have been brought. evidence that was exculpatory was withheld, improper actions taken by FBI and FBI agents, and that the case should be dismissed. And they filed joint motion to dismiss. You remember the judge, Sullivan, decided to become the lawyer, pretty much, or the special prosecutor, Andy, as you've called him. And we don't have the order yet. Do we have the opinion yet, Will? We're looking for the opinion. But
please support the Jay Sekulow Fund. It is really a good fund. In The Last Refuge, how the CIA used the media to ensnare Michael Flynn. So really, that is where it stands. It was denied, so it goes on, and it's very sad. Unfortunately, typical Facebook, they had to screw with it. Says if Vladimir Putin was willing to help President Barack Obama steal the misbegotten Iranian nuclear deal, Lieutenant Michael Flynn, a chief of defense in the DNI, was not. This resistance made him a target, especially once he said advising candidate Donald Trump, who was launching the disinformation campaign against Michael Flynn. The jury is still out. Best evidence, however, suggests forces within the CIA worked in trapping him. This is absolutely true. They did, and according to Tom Fenton, they are looking for those 302s. Or no, excuse me. This was the president who said that they need those 302s need to be found. Excuse me, because I was watching a Tom Fenton video earlier, and I meant to tag that up too. Dang it. Because it's really interesting about Joe Biden. I will try to fire that up as of maybe Sunday. I'll kind of squeak that in. I will have a guest Sunday, Ocean Nathan, on the regular time slot for Fighting for the Republic. So please join 10:30 at night Sunday. Then we have, it's kind of like a potpourri here. There has just been so much going on, which is nothing unusual. We have A.G. Barr, who was on 60 Minutes, that was CNN. It's highly unusual for him to be on CNN. But I'm glad he actually was, because he took it right to Wolf Blitzer.
Let's talk a little bit about what the president also said just a little while ago about North Carolina's absentee voting system. He said, and I'm quoting him right now, so let them send it in.
It was about the third week into Kathy's weight loss battle where things really started to go down.
And let them go vote. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote. That sounds like he's actually encouraging people to commit a crime, to vote twice.
I'm sorry, you'll have to read that again.
All right, this is what he said. So let them send it in, the email, the voting by mail, and let them go vote the ballot. Let them send in the ballot, and then let them go vote. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote. It sounds like he's encouraging people to break the law and try to vote twice.
Well, I don't know exactly what he was saying, but it seems to me what he's saying is he's trying to make the point that the ability to monitor this system is not good. And if it was so good, if you tried to vote a second time, you would be caught if you voted in person.
That would be illegal if they did that. If somebody mailed in a ballot and then actually showed up to vote in person, that would be illegal.
I don't know what the law in the particular state says.
You can't vote twice.
Well, I don't know what the law in the particular state says and when that vote becomes
Is there
final.
any state that says you can vote twice?
Well, there's some, maybe that you can change your vote up to a particular time. I don't know what the law is, so I'm not going to offer.
He was saying test
Well,
the system.
you know what he's saying. Why are you asking me what he's saying?
He doesn't believe in the mail-in voting. And you're the Attorney General of the United States.
Why did you? Yeah.
He said if you expand mail-in voting, Mr. President,
This is,
it's reckless.
Well, this is a, sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then, there have been
until
a lot
this
of
administration, let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone knows
But
that.
there are individuals cases, but as far as widespread fraud, we haven't seen that since.
Well, we haven't had the kind of widespread use of mail-in ballots as being proposed. We've had absentee ballots from people who request them from a specific address. Now what we're talking about is mailing them to everyone on the voter list when everyone knows those voter lists are inaccurate. People who should get them don't get them, which is what has been one of the major complaints in states that have tried this in municipal elections. And people who get them are not the right people. They're people who have replaced the previous occupant, and they can make them out. And sometimes multiple ballots come to the same address with a whole several generations of occupants. You think that's a way to run a vote?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that so far we haven't seen widespread fraud. But
so far we haven't tried it. Well, and the point is
that a lot of us. There are several states that only have mail-in voting, including a Republican.
Well, this is playing with fire. This is playing with fire. We're a very closely divided country here. And if people have to have confidence in the results of the election and the legitimacy of the government, and people trying to change the rules to this methodology, which as a matter of logic is very open to fraud and coercion, is reckless and dangerous. And people are playing with fire.
Well, I will point out there are 5 states that only have mail-in voting, including Utah and Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, Hawaii, and they've reported over the years they've had virtually no problems. But who's trying to change the rules?
I would say the people who want to go to mass mail-in
I'm gonna stop it right there because that is false. I know people in Oregon and they say it's massive voter fraud. They just harvest, they change your vote. This is nothing new. The Democrats always do this shit because they do it because they want to win. And this is the only way they do win is by cheating. There was several this year who have rigged a voter, the voter ballots. There's in New Jersey. There was one in Michigan. There's one in Utah. And it's like, I mean, it's everywhere. So they can't sit there and tell us that voter fraud doesn't exist. It exists. They know it does, and this is what they always do. It's very rare that I've ever heard where there's not any inconsistencies. In fact, Project Veritas has exposed a man who voted twice because he had 2 residents. One in Florida and I forgot one up north. I forgot which state. But even our officials do this. They did that in Florida during the 2016 election. I believe it was Tallahassee. So, Wolf Blitzer is just another mouthpiece for the left. And he's probably also got an earpiece in his ear and somebody trying to tell him These ridiculous questions.
But you understand why. There is a coronavirus pandemic, and that there are a lot of people potentially, if they waited long lines when they go to the polls, and they could get sick, especially older people or people with underlying conditions. As a result, a lot of people want to change the rules so they don't have to go wait in long lines.
Well,
they don't have to touch all this.
And the appropriate way to deal with that is, number one, arrangements at the polls that protect people, which can be done. And number two, people who...
And they have done it. We had a vote in the primaries. That's exactly what they did. You had to wear a mask. And 2 people at a time. They had to stand 6 feet away. They had all the different precautions with shields, masks, everything else. Nobody touched a pen. You touched it, put it in a cup when you were done. I mean, you actually put your ballot in the machine. You put your pen in a cup. Nobody else uses that. So they can and they have done it.
who have pre-existing conditions and are particularly vulnerable can get an absentee ballot. I have no problem with people. I voted by absentee ballot, not by mail. I actually went to the office to cast my vote, but absentee ballots are fine.
All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about another suggestion. You've said you were worried that a foreign country could send thousands of fake ballots to people, and it might be impossible to detect. What are you basing that on?
I'm basing that, as I've said repeatedly, I'm basing that on logic.
Pardon?
Logic.
But have you seen any evidence?
Boy, that word kind of confused him, didn't it?
No, I'm saying people.
Way,
no, I'm saying people are concerned about foreign influence, and if we use a ballot system with the system that that states are just now trying to adopt, it does leave open the possibility of counterfeiting ballots, either by someone here or someone overseas. So you think a foreign
country could do that?
I think anyone could do it.
Have you seen any evidence that they're trying to do that?
No, but most things can be counterfeited. That's why we go to the trouble of making our money the way we.
They counterfeited 20,000 driver license for Michigan and I believe Wisconsin. They were going to give people who do not, more likely more illegal here, so they could vote, because we do have voter ID.
We make it now. Should we have Minnesota print up our money on regular parchment paper?
I asked the question because U.S. intelligence officials have said they've seen no information or intelligence that foreign countries, whether Russia or China.
Well, you asked the question, but I've answered that question several times. I said, no, I don't have any information because this is the first time we've tried such a thing.
During your tenure as Attorney General of the United States, how many indictments have you brought against people committing voter fraud?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but several. I know.
Like a handful?
I can't. I don't know.
But several doesn't sound like too many.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how many we have. I know there are a number of investigations right now, some very big ones in states.
The president also has said, and I'm quoting him directly, that he's ready to send sheriffs, law enforcement, and U.S. attorneys to polling places on election day. You're the Attorney General. Can the president do that legally?
It depends if he's responding to a particular criminal threat.
He says he just wants to do it as a precaution.
I didn't hear him say that.
The acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, said on CNN, we don't have any authority to do that. Right. That's what he specifically said.
Well, I'm saying,
is he right?
Well, if there was a specific investigative danger that we detected some problem and risk.
Has he raised that possibility with you to send Justice Department, law enforcement to polling places on election day, November 3rd?
No.
As a precaution?
No. But sometimes they have been in the past to enforce civil rights.
Because he said we're going to send sheriffs, law enforcement,
we've done so in the past to enforce civil rights to make sure that people were not being harassed and there was no suppression of vote against African Americans.
Let's talk a little bit about foreign interference, Russia specifically. The top elections official in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, our Office of National Intelligence, revealed publicly last month that Russia is working to help President Trump get elected, while both China and Iran prefer Joe Biden to win. first of all, do you accept that Russia is once again interfering in the U.S. presidential election?
I accept that there's some preliminary activity that suggests that they might try again.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, that's all I'm saying.
You think that Russia is? You've seen that intelligence.
It wouldn't
that
surprise.
Russia-
It wouldn't surprise me if Russia tries something again, of the same general genre of before. I mean, this influence basically is two kinds of things. It's hack and dump. You get into someone's mail system and then try to disclose embarrassing documents. Wouldn't surprise me if they try something like that, or any other country tries it. The other way is, social media and putting things out on social media.
Because the intelligence community says Russia, China, and Iran are seeking to interfere in the U.S. presidential election for various reasons, but mostly they want to sow dissent in our country, exacerbate racial tensions, etc., like that. Of those three countries that the intelligence community has pointed to, Russia, China, and Iran, which is the most assertive, the most aggressive in this area?
I believe it's China.
Which one?
China.
China more than Russia right now?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Because I've seen the intelligence. That's what I've concluded.
What are they trying to do?
Well, I'm not going to discuss that.
But they're trying to help who win?
I'm not going to get into that.
More aggressive than Russia?
Yes.
Because the U.S. intelligence community...
Trying to influence the United States? Yes.
Yeah. I'm just trying to be precise on that area. And one of the most explosive revelations from the recently submitted Senate Intelligence Committee, which is bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, they report on Russian interference in the 2016 election, and they say that they had confirmation that the Russians did interfere. They cite the case of Paul Manafort, who was the Trump campaign chairman, was working directly with someone the U.S. intelligence community considered to be a Russian intelligence officer. Do you accept that?
I accept that Russia made some efforts to influence the election. I wouldn't say I necessarily accept.
But do you agree with what the Senate Intelligence Committee concluded, that Russia did directly interfere in the 2016 presidential election with the goal of helping Donald Trump?
Based on the intelligence I've seen, I don't dispute an assessment that they attempted to interfere.
On the second, a Iowa judge ruling hands Trump a campaign early win in the mail-in ballots. Iowa judge ruling that invalidating 50,000 requests for an absentee ballots became an election official pre-filled voters' personal information has squirrel. Personal information has handed President Trump campaign an early win in the fight against expected mail-in ballots. Judge Ian Thornhill this week ruled Lynn County Auditor Joe Miller, a Democrat, overstepped his boundaries by entering personal information in the ballots mailed out to the voters of the county. Oh yeah, no fraud there, right? Right, Wolf? Miller has been ordered to void the original ballot request and inform voters in writing they must process new ballots, absentee ballots, that is, or show up at the polls to vote in person. The ruling Thursday provides an early victory for the president campaign, which is legally challenged practices across the country that loosen rules to mail-in ballots during the pandemic. Now, if you've been paying attention, hopefully you have, that the Democrats went on the recess not having a bill for any emergency aid for their business, for their home, for unemployment. But they had to come back for ballots. They had to make sure that they had money for mail-in ballots and all this other shit for the Postal Service. Now, everybody knows the Postal Service has been hemorrhaging money for decades, and they really need the money. So, there's your sign right there. Then we have stuff like this. Then we have governors who are pushing absentee ballots in their states. We are one. We're taking steps to do that. I personally do not want an absentee ballot. I always vote at the polls. Excuse me. This has always been a problem because they always, even when you're at the polls, a lot of paper ballots come up missing. They're shoved in a closet. They're put on a truck. They're put in warehouses. And then, oh my God, when the election's over, look at all these ballots. The opponent could have won, which is normally a Republican. They don't really care. That's how they do it. Now the president, actually the New York AG files a motion to stop the Trump administration efforts to undermine the U.S. Postal Service. The Postal Service can't do it. They cannot handle it. Remember when Bernie Sanders wanted our financial dealings done by Postal? New York Attorney General Letitia James says she has taken action to halt the Trump administration attempt to dismantle the United States Post Office, and despite operations in the effort to undermine the November presidential election. Following a lawsuit she filed last week, Attorney General James today filed a motion for preliminary injunction, asking the courts to quickly stop President Trump and the UPS, the Postal Master Service, Postal General Master Service, DeJoy from continuing down the path of showing mail operations lead to up to Election Day. This was on the 2nd of this month. We know that President Trump's ultimate goal here is to depress, overturn, and disfranchise millions of voters, said Attorney General. The president's actions are the same as those used to dictatorships and authoritarian governments. But we want to sit idly by and see he tries to suppress democracy and everyday Americans' fundamental rights to vote. We are filing a motion to stop the president dead in his tracks and to ensure every eligible voter has the opportunity to cast their votes in November. Of course they are. This is not what this is about. This is about to ensure a fair election. This is how they try to take care of the narrative. This is what they do. Excuse me just a minute. Okay. I wanted to make sure I had things ready for you. So we'll have to see what that happens in New York. Usually they do not take very speedy time on doing things, of course. for what they do. Now, today was a very historical day. Now, back in 2017, when the president went to the Middle East and made this huge peace deal, it was monumental. Never been done before. Arab nations recognize Israel and its existence, right? Then he had Qatar. Qatar will recognize Israel, and there is a peace deal. Now, we've never had nothing this monumental before, but I think the thing we came close to was Anwar Sadat back in the Carter administration, was a peace deal between Israel and Jordan. So this, what happened today, is extraordinary. But let's kind of step back just for a minute. Back in 2017, I said this man is going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. He is accomplishing more and more between countries, especially in the Middle East, that nobody has ever done before. This man is skilled. He's a genius. And why more people like on the left are not proud of this man, I don't know. He is bringing peace between nations and bringing real peace to the Middle East. Now, the only way the Israeli-Palestine deal could ever be peaceful, to my guess, I will say, because I'm trying to figure out how it could work, is that Palestine said they don't want the deal. The president, at least his administration, and the Israeli Netanyahu administration have come up with a plan, I've showed that map before, of how Israel and Palestine can get along. Palestinians will get their state. Now, the only way I can see it at this point, unless it changes, is that not that the Palestinians want peace, because they're not going to have a choice but for peace. Now, Lebanon is still now a wild card because the whole government stepped down after the huge explosion. Excuse me. So what happened today is another piece of this puzzle. Now, we all who are old enough to know the massive and tragic war in Kosovo and Bosnia was horrendous. And you got to give it to Clinton and his administration. He did stop the war, but did not stop these two countries from not getting along till today. It's a start. It's a start. Now, many people have tried, how can politically you get through this? How can you make these two countries get along and look for peace and a way for permanent fighting to stop? But our great president did it. He stopped. He did something amazing.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is a truly historic day, a very, very important day, especially in a beautiful part of the world. I'm pleased to announce a truly historic commitment. Serbia and Kosovo have each committed to economic normalization. Very important term. We've been working on this for many, many years, decades, actually. After a violent and tragic history and years of failed negotiations, my administration proposed a new way of bridging the divide. by focusing on job creation and economic growth, the two countries were able to reach a major breakthrough, something that nobody thought was going to be possible, and I think it's going to work out very well, and we're going to be working with them on economic cooperation across a broad range of issues. And I can say that Serbia and Kosovo have tremendous numbers of people in the United States. They love your country. They love your country so much. They love your country so much. And it's really good that we were able to get this done. I've had a lot of people here that would like to see and would be very proud to see this happening. There's been tremendous death over a long period of time, and that all stops. We've also made additional progress on reaching peace in the Middle East. I will say that. Kosovo and Israel have agreed to normalization of ties and the establishment of diplomatic relations. The agreement we made with UAE has been incredible, what it's represented, what it's meant. And we have other countries in the Middle East coming very much to us and saying, like, when do we go? When can we sign? I think we're going to have great peace in the Middle East, and nobody's been able to say that for a long time. Serbia is committed to opening a commercial office in Jerusalem this month and to move its embassy to Jerusalem in July. That's fantastic. That's a big thing. That's a very big statement, and we appreciate that very much. It's taken tremendous bravery by the president of Serbia and the president of Kosovo, who are with me today, two highly respected people, to embark on these talks and to come to Washington to finalize these commitments. By doing so, they've made their countries, the Balkans, really an incredible area, some of the most beautiful land in the world. But they've made the world safer. I look forward to seeing Serbia and Kosovo prosper as we work together on economic cooperation in the region going forward. I look forward to going to both countries someday in the not too distant future. We have a thing called a campaign going on right now, so I think we better devote a little time to that. But we look forward to it. But we're very proud of these two great leaders and for getting this done, and their people are very proud of them, maybe more importantly. And truly it is historic. So I want to thank you both, and if you'd like to sign, you could start, and we'll start the process. I'm going to give you this one. This is for you. This is for you. That's for you. That's for you. Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Would anybody have any questions for these two great leaders? They are great leaders, too.
And this goes to the old proverb, only Nixon can go to China. Look it up.
Would you like to respond, or I could have somebody else? Robert, would you like to talk about that?
So I think that the focus here, and I don't want to step on President Vučić or Prime Minister Hoti.
I appreciate the voters for Trump. Every weekend I see it, not even weekends now, they're doing it during the week. And I just wish I had time. I'd get on one of those boats and I'd be carrying a flag also. But I have to say, it looks like you're having a good time. I just want to thank everybody. I see that, and the whole world is watching. And you people are fantastic. Your spirit, your strength, and you get it. You know what you're doing. So go out and have a lot of fun and celebrate. And the big thing is November 3rd, Get out and vote. We can't let the radical left take over this country. They'll raise your taxes by 3 to 4 times. They're looking at 90% rates, 90, 95, and they won't be able to afford that. They need 300%. These people are crazy, and we have to stop them. Thank you very much.
But I think today is about normalization of economic ties, and it's really a fantastic step that the two peoples have taken, both Kosovo and Serbia, and it's taken a lot of effort. I think that's a first step, and I think down the road, as those economic ties grow, I think there are going to be political solutions to outstanding issues. But today we want to focus on the normalization of economic relations between the companies, the opening of border crossings, investment by the United States in both Kosovo and Serbia, deals between Kosovo and Serbia on recognizing each other's diplomas and licenses so that a dentist who's trained in Kosovo can perform his practice or her practice in Serbia and vice versa. So I think there's just a lot of amazing steps that we're taking here. And so I think the focus today is on the economic normalization, and our feeling is that that's going to lead to breakthroughs on the political front in the future.
It's going to really bring them together. Rick Grinnell, please.
I think everybody knows that we've been stuck politically in this issue for decades, and many times fighting about symbolic things. And what President Trump did from the very beginning is say, let's flip it. Let's figure out how to do economics first. You can't pay your rent and you can't buy food with symbolism, but you can when you have a job. And from the very beginning, what President Trump said is, let's give them a little taste of the Trump economy. Let's show them how to develop economics, how to take industries and grow them, and let's see if the concentration on economics and job creation can unstick the political stuff. That remains to be seen, but I think one of the great parts of this agreement is over the next year, we have a freeze on the recognition and derecognition campaigns. That means over this next year, we can see job growth and job creation really take hold in the region, and then a year from now, judge us on where the political process goes.
Thank you, Rick. And speaking of job growth, I think it's important to say that our unemployment rate dropped all the way down to 8.4%. It was just announced an hour ago. And that is many, many months ahead of schedule. They said you won't break 10% at least until next year sometime. And we just hit 8.4%, and we're going down rapidly. Plus, a lot of jobs were produced. But very important, we just broke the 10% mark, and that wasn't going to happen until January, February, March, maybe. And so we're at 8.4%, and that starts to sound much more normal. We're recovering from the China plague, and they are too, by the way. They got hit very hard. Every country did almost. 188 countries got hit. But
Hi, I'm Nikki Haley.
This is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Hello, I'm Senator Lindsey Graham.
I'm Ted Cruz.
Hi, it's Marco.
8.4% is an incredible number, way ahead of schedule, way ahead of schedule. So again, any other questions for the two gentlemen?
Sir, what was your role as the president in bringing about this economic agreement, and why did it take decades to get to the point that we are at today?
Well, I can tell you that it took decades because you didn't have anybody trying to get it done. We've been working on this for almost from the beginning of the administration.
Wow.
And you had some deep-seated feelings.
Didn't know that.
And long-term feelings, and there was a lot of fighting, and now there's a lot of love, and that's the way it's going to be. I think they're going to have a tremendous relationship, and the economic is going to bring them together. It's going to unify the two countries. And it was just something that was so obvious to me right from the beginning. And Rick Grinnell, I think in particular, he would talk about it all the time. He didn't understand why this had to be. And he was right. And he brought them together with Robert and with Jared and Avi. So many people were involved, but it just seemed to be such a natural fit. And I think you're going to see some really tremendous things are going to happen. In addition, it's going to be great economically for both countries. Plus, it also opens up the United States much more easily to both countries. We don't have to worry about these two sort of warring nations, fighting nations. And I think they're going to have a fantastic relationship. Economics can bring people together, and that's what's happening right here. But my people did a fantastic job. They really did a fantastic job. Any other questions for the? Yes, please. I'd like you to say.
If you allow me, I'm really honored and privileged to be here and representing Serbia here in Oval Office, and thank you, Mr. President, for doing a great job. When I say great job, I really mean it, because your people and you wanted to engage yourself into a matter that, as a matter of fact, very few people wanted to do, and also your commitment to stabilize the region and to bring peace and stability into the region is something that we appreciate a lot. It's something of enormous significance for us. Speaking about economy, of course, speaking about politics, we haven't resolved all our problems. There are still a lot of differences between us, but this is a huge step forward, and I am once again profoundly grateful to you and to your people that you successfully got us here. And we didn't speak about many items that we signed today, but for us it's very important that we are going to have a unified economic zone in an entire Western Balkans, which will bring us to the real economic results for the benefit and for the sake of all our people. Once again, Mr. President, we appreciate and we respect your role, and if I may use or misuse this opportunity to extend an invitation to you to visit Serbia. The last US president that visited Serbia was Jimmy Carter because of Tito's funeral. Come to Serbia and you'll see the most hospitable reception, and you'll see how people of Serbia would react to that. Once again, many thanks to you, many thanks to Rick, to Jared, to Mr. Pence, to Robert O'Brien, to all the people that dedicated their time and bringing us here to Oval Office. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Please.
If I may,
Yes,
Mr. President.
please.
Oh, hey, sorry. Ever wonder what it's like? Thank you very much for your exceptional role and for your great team that we came to this point. I think absolutely this is a great moment for Kosovo and for the region. I think we made a huge step forward toward full normalization of relations that should lead eventually to mutual recognition between the two countries. We are fully committed to work together to improve people's lives, to create new jobs in the region, and we fully believe in your administration. We share the same values of freedom, democracy, and open market economy, so we are looking forward to start implementing this agreement as soon as possible.
Going to be very successful. We have no doubt.
Absolutely.
We have no doubt. It's too bad this couldn't have happened many years ago, but you needed somebody to work it and bring it together. So congratulations to both. Mike Pence, please.
Well, Mr. President, I just want to extend all of our congratulations to the President of Serbia and the Prime Minister of Kosovo. Mr. President, you demonstrated again a commitment to peace.
John, you're a terrible troll.
Today's agreement on economic cooperation, we believe, as the President and Prime Minister do, as you do, that this is an important step toward peace in the Balkans in the long term. But let me also say how much we appreciate and welcome the important steps that both of these countries are making, Mr. President, in the direction of recognizing Israel.
Well, right here is an example, John. What did Obama do? Did he bring peace to Serbia and Bosnia? No, he gave pallets of cash to Iran. They're traitors. They sold us out. They bowed before countries. This man don't do that. Go back the next 3 years. Look up stuff that he's done. You asked.
Moving embassies to Jerusalem, as you have done. The good book says, blessed are the peacemakers. And Mr. President, I think the American people, the people of Serbia, the people of Kosovo that are looking on, know that there are three peacemakers here. And we've made an important step with this economic agreement toward lasting peace in the Balkans. I want to congratulate them, and I want to congratulate you, Mr. President, on your leadership that brought us to this historic day.
Thank you, Mike, very much. I'd like to have a really great senator, Ron Johnson.
John, what am I showing here? So you say he hasn't done shit, then what is he doing here? Looks like he did an amazing feat. This is another step towards peace in the Middle East. Because one of these countries are Muslim.
Wisconsin. And you have a lot of people from Serbia and Kosovo living in your state. And you were a big part of it, so thank you very much. Would you like to say something?
Well, first of all, this is a really big deal. I could not be happier for everybody, particularly the people of Kosovo and Serbia. This was a brilliant strategy. Now, I've been involved. I've made multiple trips to both Kosovo and Serbia. And by the way, if you go, you will find what fantastic hosts the folks from Kosovo and Serbia are. But this has taken real political courage. This is not easy. As much as we can say, well, what's the big deal? This is a really big deal. But it really was the leadership shown by President Vučić, Prime Minister of Kosovo. The beauty of focusing on economics is that their people will see the benefit and they will be able to overcome and take the next step. This is a big day for, I think, stability in the Balkans as well. So again, I'm just glad to be here to see the culmination of this. And I just want to congratulate everybody involved, but in particular, I want to congratulate the people of Kosovo and Serbia. America is your friend, and we want nothing but the best for the people of Kosovo and Serbia.
And you have a very good tennis player playing right.
2 times richer than Jeff Bezos? It's true. Jeff Bezos founded Amazon, is worth over $100 billion.
Right now in the US Open.
The best in the world. By far the best in the world. Number one.
Djokovic. He's a great player.
Yes, many NBA players.
Yes, you do.
Players. Yes. Very good players, as a matter of fact.
They're all as tall as you are, even a little bit taller maybe.
Yes.
Well, we want to thank you both, and this has been really terrific. Would you have any other questions for the Prime Minister or the President?
We want to ask you about the economy if we can a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So on the economy today, obviously, there's 1.4 million jobs
Right.
that were added. At this pace, though, it'll still take a full year before all the jobs lost before the pandemic are regained. Is that good enough?
I think what's happening is you're going to see tremendous growth in the very near future. We're rounding the curve. We're coming up with vaccines. I think the vaccines are going to be announced very soon. And I think you're going to see great companies announcing these vaccines. I spoke with Pfizer today. I speak with
My guess is going to be hydrochloroquine in a form of one of these.
different companies. Johnson & Johnson, as you know, doing really well. Moderna. We have tremendous talent, tremendous scientists, and they're really right there. And I think you're going to hear some very good news. And also, to me, maybe even better, I think when it comes to therapeutics, you're going to have some incredible news coming out very soon. I say therapeutics because that's you walk into the hospital, and whether it's a transfusion or a shot, people get better. That's something that I think right now is really incredible. The numbers are way down, as you know. Florida is doing very well. Arizona's been actually a little bit of a miracle how quickly it went down, because it went up and it went down very quickly. 2 really great governors. Texas, great governor, same thing. California, the numbers are way down. So we're really starting to see those areas that popped up are really going down. The mortality rates, you look at the percentages, what's happening, and that's because of the convalescent plasma, it's because of the remdesivir. It's for a lot of different reasons, but we do have therapeutics that are really having an impact, and you're looking at what's going on. I've seen numbers from 50 to 85% better. So that's really something. So we're very proud of the job we're doing. And I think in particular, not only the great companies, but the companies, every one of them has said to me, if this was a more typical kind of presidency, I'll be nice. If this was a more typical kind of president, getting these approvals would take 2 or 3 years. And they'll have them, I mean, as far as we're concerned, they're very close to announcing some very big news. So we're honored by that. And I've had a team, whether it's Vice President Mike Pence, head of the task force, and all of the people on the task force, and they've really done a great job. I don't think they've been.
These declassified documents reveal the extent to which the FBI abused the FISA spy warrant.
Been recognized for the great job they've done. And last night I read out in Pennsylvania, Latrobe, the home of the great Arnold Palmer. But I read out some statistics on how we're doing compared to other parts of the world. And we're doing phenomenally well. And if you took New York, because New York was just, really, they made a lot of mistakes in New York. But if you took that out, tremendous number of deaths in New York. If you took that out, our numbers are just about as good as anybody in the world. And even without that, without taking it out, you see the kind of numbers we have. So we've done a good job. We've done a great job in helping governors. I think every governor is very happy. Not everybody expresses it to the media, but they do at the task force meetings. We've had task force meetings where they're laying praise on us. And then they'll go out and talk to the press, and they won't be quite as generous, but that's okay. But for the most part, I think we've helped. In every case, we've helped every governor, and we've helped them a lot. And some of them we've made look very good, and some have done a really great job, and others haven't. But as a country, we have really done a terrific job, and I want to thank Vice President Pence. But I won't thank too much right now because we like to get the job finished first. And the vaccines are going to come out soon, and the therapeutics are continuing, and that's why we're having the kind of numbers we have. And I'll be doing a news conference today at 5 o'clock, so I'll see you there, okay?
Sir, do you need to apologize to service members and veterans?
No, it was a fake story written by a magazine that was probably not going to be around much longer, but it was a totally fake story, and that was confirmed by many people who were actually there. It was a terrible thing that somebody could say the kind of things, and especially to me, because I've done more for the military than almost anybody else. You look at how the VA is doing, it's doing incredibly well. We got all sorts of things done, from accountability to veterans' choice to everything. And it's got right now the highest approval rating that it's ever had, 91% approval rating. It's never been anywhere close to that. Nobody's done what I've done, and that includes salary increases, but it really includes the rebuilding of our military, because as you know, when I came here, our military was totally depleted, and we spent almost $2.5 trillion, much more than you spent on your military, I can tell you that, right? Slightly more. $2.5 trillion, all made in the USA, F-35s, brand new jets and rockets and missiles, and hope to God that we never have to use it, but our nuclear is now in.
Is fruit bad for your diet? You should know that the advice to eat plenty of fruits and vegetables is
Hate commercials.
Extraordinary shape,
At least those.
including new weapons. I just hope we never have to use that, because that's a level of power that you don't even want to talk about. You don't even want to hear about it. So it's a fake story, and it's a disgrace that they're allowed to do it. And very interestingly, I hate to bring up his book, but John Bolton, no friend of mine, I thought he was, didn't know too much about what he was doing. He didn't do a good job, but he wrote a book, and he talks about this incident, and he doesn't mention it. And frankly, a lot of reporters, even some pretty bad ones, they read that, and that was the end of the story. There's nobody that considers the military, and especially people that have given their lives in the military, to me, they're heroes. To me, they're heroes. It's even hard to believe how they could do it, and I say that. It's so the level of bravery, and to me, they are absolute heroes. Thank you very much, everybody.
That's just a huge story right there alone. We are another step towards peace, and it's almost hard to believe, but it's so real that it took this man to bring these two countries together, because he thought outside the box. Now I'm going to take a short break, and I'll be right back.
This just in. The global officials that can help all, also known as Got You, have now banned all boogieing and boogie-related movements worldwide. Public safety is the main concern, they say, and people are reminded that boogieing is contagious. Anyone caught boogieing will be dealt with in the harshest terms, police have reported. More at 11.
This world can get you down. There's just one thing you can do. You gotta get back up and shake it all around. No one's gonna tell me how I'm gonna boogie. Come on, everybody boogie bumper tonight. No one's gonna tell me how I'm gonna boogie. Come on, everybody boogie bumper tonight. No one's gonna tell me how to boogie. Come on, everybody boogie bumper tonight.
Most weeknights, join my good self UK Neil over at DLive for the Great Awakening show. That's over on DLive at dlive.tv/UK Neil. Get yourself out of that matrix and get over to the Great Awakening.
Welcome back. Later this afternoon, after this meeting at the White House, we had a presser to further give some more information on the Great Peace Deal. And it's amazing. Oh man, I'm telling you, it's just exciting.
Me, Ambassador Rick Grinnell, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, and Senior Advisor Jared Kushner to talk to you about the history that was made here at the White House today, and then they'll take a few of your questions.
Thank you, Kaylee. Again, it was a great morning in the Oval Office with President Trump, President Vucic, and Prime Minister Hoti. We brought together, through the hard work of great diplomats, primarily led by Rick Grinnell, acting at the president's direction, Serbia and Kosovo, and they've normalized their economic relations. This is the Serbia-Kosovo conflict has gone on for decades. They've been stuck, unable to move forward for many, many years. And the president, some time ago, decided that we needed to try something creative, try something new, break the deadlock, and try to move forward with the peace process with Serbia and Kosovo. To have the Prime Minister of Kosovo and the President of Serbia together in the Oval Office was something, given the history of those two countries and given the history of the United States with respect to Serbia and the conflict in the Balkans, is something that is quite remarkable. And to have this happen just in the shadow, a few days after Jared and I were on the flight from Ben Gurion Airport to Abu Dhabi International Airport, the first commercial flight between Israel and a Gulf Arab state. It shows the sort of momentum that's coming. One of the side benefits of the normalization of economic ties between Serbia and Kosovo
was the establishment of diplomatic relations between Kosovo, a majority Muslim state, and the state of Israel. This is now the second time in less than a month that Israel has made peace with and has normalized its ties with a majority Muslim country. It's another really signal accomplishment of President Trump. The fact that this has happened on the heels of a peace agreement with the Taliban in Afghanistan, that it's happened in response on the heels of last year negotiating a ceasefire between the Kurds and the Turks. You're seeing a pattern here of the president being a true peacemaker, and there's been plenty of criticism of the administration. But what's been interesting to me is as the president has undertaken these historic initiatives and brought together a team to perform and deliver these accomplishments, others have even tried to take credit. I was just watching the vice president, without making a political comment, the vice president was welcoming these moves today. But these things could only happen under a Trump administration and under the president's leadership, peace through strength, foreign policy, and national security policy. He put the pieces in place, and now we're reaping the peace dividend. And it's happened to the Balkans, it's happened in the Middle East, and we have more to come. I'll leave some of that to Senior Advisor Kushner to address in a moment. So, with those opening comments, I want to turn the time over to the Special Envoy for Serbia and Kosovo, the Presidential Envoy for Serbia and Kosovo, Ambassador Rick Grinnell. He'll have a few comments, and then we'll make ourselves available for some questions after Rick and Jared address you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert. I know there's a lot of reporters who have worked a long time in your industry. And for any reporter that has been working for more than 10 years, you will know this story. There was a terrible war. And this story has been lingering for decades. And so I really want to appeal to you all as journalists to dig deep on this story. This is one of those good news stories that I'm not asking you to do anything but look at the facts and look at really what's been happening here. We've been working very hard on this agreement for a long time. We had 3 agreements last year that went largely unnoticed by Washington reporters. And I just really have to say, I think it's a shame when we talk a lot about symbolism and we don't dig deep on these stories that last 21 years. What we've been able to accomplish here by pushing the 2 parties together is truly historic. The way that this came about is that the politics were stuck. Everybody knows that. We've been fighting and talking about the same thing for decades. They have been fighting about the same symbolism, words, verbs, adjectives. It's been a nightmare. And what President Trump said to me was, they're fighting politically about everything. Why don't we give it a try to do something different and creative? Why not try to do economics first and let the politics follow the economics? That proved to actually be a formula that they were eager for. No one had been talking to them about this. We have an establishment foreign policy team in Washington, D.C. that literally keeps pounding the same meetings and issues over and over. I'm telling you that the only way that this agreement could have happened is from an outsider. All of the insiders in Washington said, you're not talking about recognition. You're not talking about this symbolic word. And what we tried to do is ignore that. And from an outsider perspective, go in and dig deep. I ask you to look at this agreement and see all of the details that have been hard fought, negotiated, that will move both economies and the entire region forward. This is economic normalization. It's a first step. I think the Europeans are going to be very happy We've been on the phone a couple of times with the National Security Advisor in Germany, the National Security Advisor in France to brief them. We briefed them on the strategy, and we are briefing them again today on the details of this agreement. This is something that I feel very strongly about. It will make Americans safer. It'll make American companies more prosperous. This is a region that's been largely shut out because of a perceived conflict. Whether or not there's been a conflict, there has been a perceived conflict. European businesses and American businesses largely have refused to go in and grow in these areas. Now we will be able to open this up, whether it's in energy, water, construction of roads, railways, mines. These are all industries that are going to be opened up to European and hopefully American businesses to go in and help the people create an industry, which means creating jobs in the region, but also U.S. jobs for Americans and American companies. The last thing I'll say before we turn it over to Jared, the people of Serbia and the people of Kosovo are ecstatic about this agreement and are very thankful that there was an outside administration to look at this situation and not do the typical political thing. If we would have done the typical political thing and listened to all of the really smart people at NGOs and think tanks here in Washington, D.C., we would not have this agreement. Take just a quick look at the criticism and the lead up to this of what we should have been talking about and what we weren't talking about. It's all been squarely in the same old political dialogue that was stuck. And I'm really thankful that President Trump challenged us to say, think differently, think from an outsider's perspective. And that was the key to the whole thing. So I really urge you to look at the details and see, and talk to the leaders in Kosovo and Serbia. Ask them how this came about. Ask them how the process went. And I think you'll see that this outsider perspective of doing things differently is what worked.
Thank you, Ambassador Grinnell. An incredible job working through this historic agreement, and Ambassador O'Brien. This is just another chapter that this administration has been able to write towards making the world a safer and more peaceful place. President Trump, when he ran for politics, was not a politician. He sees things through a prism that not a lot of politicians look through, which is, how can I truly do things that will make people's lives better, make people find common interests and opportunities, and figure out ways to resolve conflicts that, quite frankly, politicians have allowed to go on for far too long. Today's breakthrough really is historic, and we have had so many historic things this week that we shouldn't be minimizing the significance of all the different things that happened. I started the week with Ambassador O'Brien in Jerusalem, where we met with the Prime Minister, and then took the first ever commercial flight from Israel to United Arab Emirates. We broke that barrier, which brought a lot of hope to the Middle East. And for the last years, I've been listening to a lot of people tell us in the administration all of the things we were doing wrong while we were looking at this the wrong way. And what the president's done is he's reversed now 20 years of bad foreign policy in the Middle East, where we've allowed our country to get trapped in a lot of these wars that, quite frankly, don't do much for our country. We have to make sure that we're keeping our country safe, and we need to figure out how we can get people in the Middle East and in Europe to get along, so that we can spend our resources and our treasure on building up our countries and building up our cities and helping our citizens. And what you've seen through President Trump's first 3.5 years is he's trying to end a lot of these endless wars. He's making peace agreements. He's bringing people together, and he's bringing our troops back home to America, while figuring out how to get along with different countries and reducing the foreign threats that we have. Second, this week, obviously, we were in Saudi Arabia, and then Saudi Arabia announced the historic opening of their airspace, which, again, brings people in the Middle East closer together. And then yesterday, Bahrain announced the same thing, that they'll be opening up their airspace, which, again, will allow flights and better commerce and interaction between peoples to happen in the Middle East in a much quicker way. Today, we announced another normalization with Israel, which, quite frankly, a lot of the divide between the anti-Semitism that we have in the world, the terrorism we have in the world, comes from the notion that people are divided, and leaders will exploit divisions and religious differences to try and keep people divided, to cause conflict, often to maintain power for themselves that they mask in an ideological way. This breakthrough, again, brings people closer and shows people in the world that anything is possible if we push for it. And again, fundamentally, President Trump believes that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what country you're in, all people want the same thing, which is they want the opportunity to live freely, live better lives, have economic opportunity, and live in peace. And today, again, is another historic step forward that politicians have spoken about for decades but haven't been able to deliver on. And it's another victory for this administration and really for the world. And so I want to give my congratulations to the people of Serbia and the people of Kosovo, and to the people of Europe, and also to the people of Israel, who will reap tremendous benefits from this agreement. So thank you.
Ambassador O'Brien, the U.S. government determined that Russians are seeking to, quote, undermine faith in the electoral process by spreading disinformation about the accuracy of voter data for expanded vote by mail.
Okay,
President Trump is...
Since they're going to start asking stupid questions once again, I will skip the rest of that. Hold on a second. There we go. This is tremendous, absolutely tremendous that this has happened. It was totally unexpected. It broke early this morning. So what's for his next trick? My guy. I'm telling you, it's just amazing. This man just does not quit. He has done so much, and he continues. Now, he's even pushed forward, which the tweet came around today, 50,000 ventilators from Ford, from Michigan. That put a lot of people to work during this pandemic, whatever you want to call it. Scam-demic. Yeah, it's Russian again. They're going to keep pushing this Russian narrative, because then if they win, they lose, they're going to blame it on Russia, or they're going to blame it on China. They just can't handle losing. There was a... Let's see, let me make sure I get this correct. That's not it. That's it. There was another indictment or another document from AG Barr released. Hopefully they can see it. My screen is pretty bright, the one I'm looking on. Attorney General Barr announced to appoint, it was an appointment, Andronette T. Bacon as acting U.S. Attorney for Northern District, New York. Attorney General Barr announced today as acting U.S. Attorney, Bacon will serve as the Northern District, New York Chief Federal Law Enforcement Officer, supervising the office of approximately 49 assistant U.S. attorneys, 49 support staff, 15 current staff, and Bacon will also be responsible for prosecuting federal crime offenses and representing the United States civil liberties in the district. I am pleased to appoint Tony Bacon as acting Attorney General, Northern New York, said Barr. Her contribution to the interactive she oversaw while working in the office of the Deputy Attorney General after the treatment of her ruthless comment to protect and serve all Americans. I know that the district will find Tony an exceptional prosecutor. And so this could really be important because you're in New York. And we know what's in New York, a lot of scumbags. So this could be very significant in prosecution. Who knows? Maybe Cuomo and de Blasio. Let's see. Miss Bacon is the natural elder justice. Let me move this over here. Coordinator of an Associate Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Justice. Annetta, I don't know. Well, I'm going to just call her Miss Bacon. Is highly decorated attorney from Cleveland, Ohio. Having earned 2 of the highest awards of the Deputy Justice, along with special awards from the IRS, U.S. Postal Service, and the U.S. Attorney Office. Her prosecution of funds, warrant abuse, and corruption. She is normally recognized for one of the country's primary public corruption attorneys for having successfully prosecuted nearly 100 targets and have led one of the largest corruption cases in the country's history. Whatever county corruption case has 9-year investigation involved the prosecution of over 60 public officials and business executives, including county commissioners, a county advisor, a Cleveland City Council member, 2 sitting judges, 9 attorneys, 5 formal prosecutors, 2 union leaders, and 2 senior hospital executives. The prosecutor, inspired by an overwhelmed in the county government and a partridge in a pear tree. Yeah, that was ad-libbed. So, so she's got a good record. So, especially in New York, we're going to get a lot of good convictions out of there. And it sounds like she's the right lady for the job, and wish her the best. Let's nail them assholes. Let's get them out. And another one. 3 men suspected of excuse me, I can't pronounce it. Something in Provivian. I know what it is. Sentenced to significant terms in insurrection of overseeing calls certain that threaten a defense Spanish-speaking U.S. customers. 3 men have been sentenced to significant terms of insurrection of operating a large fraud and extortion scam, and the Department of Justice announced. 3 men managed to operated call center based in Lima and I cannot pronounce that Providence in Peru, which used government impersonation, lied, and threatened to steal money from thousands of Spanish-speaking victims in the United States. Earlier today, Department of Justice Robert Scola sentenced Johnny L. Higuero, I'm not going to pronounce their names, God forbid, of Lima, Peru, for 100 months in federal prison for the role overseeing one of the call centers. So that's pretty good. You know, we got to protect our people in these scams because they do mostly attack the elderly, and we got to make sure that doesn't happen. And big news, big Michigan news. Hold on to your shit. I mean, start like jumping up and down. Official. Gretchen Whitmer will face a recall effort in Michigan. Let's go, boys. Let's get her. Michigan Board of Commerce approved 2 recall petitions Wednesday, sinking a drive Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer out of office over her coronavirus emergency orders, including her shelter-in-place, lockdown, and her efforts to ban exclusive medical procedures in the state, hydrochloroquine, because she denied it. Some functions in Michigan are still shut down as Whitmer prolongs her unless control. Activist Michael Gilber and James Mowaski, pardon me if I mispronounce your names, now have the ability to force a recall election if they put together a little more than 1 million signatures, which a possible reject a governor that simmered anti-lockdown protesters at their own state capital as white supremacists.
Are you now confident that she will pull the trigger and let you reopen?
And this is part of it. She's still kind of dilly down on letting gyms reopen.
I think I'm optimistic.
Gyms all over the state had been shuttered under the governor's executive order, but in recent days, the governor's been in conversation with the gym industry and has been given new data. And Mr. Reif is telling the front office,
COVID-19 is not being spread in gyms.
For example, he adds, gyms in Ohio have been open since late May, and to date, 8 cases of COVID. And as of May 1st, at the 1,570 Planet Fitness gyms around the world, the CEO contends the visit-to-virus ratio is this.
The positive COVID cases that have been reported is 0.00028. It's statistically 0, and it's the equivalent of 1 in 354,000 check-ins at Planet Fitness.
One source does question the scientific validity of that claim, but regardless, it has been shared with the governor's office, and all the data, quote, is being closely looked at. The word is the governor will make this decision official during a news conference next week. However, Mr. Reif observes,
it's a fluid situation, but I am optimistic that it's being closely looked at.
These folks who've been locked out for months are hoping he's right. In Lansing, Tim Skubik, Fox 2 News.
So that is what's happening in Michigan. Getting her. We're going after her. We're going to get her out. I do believe they're still taking names on recall. Let's go get her. It's because we need to have her recalled. Cuomo, another issue is become the rioters. And now, I've recently listened to Q. It was a Q YouTuber. So it's making a lot of sense now that the governors are using this, and this is only temporary because this is failing. And that's the riots in Portland and everything else. So, remember when Ted Wheeler went out in the crowd saying he was one of them, then they suddenly turned on him? Well, they're getting worse. But the government is tracking all of them. They are being tracked. I think what the president say, over 2,000 to 3,000 have been arrested. Here is Barney with a little bit of Portland.
Acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf says he's had enough of the lawlessness and riots in Portland, Oregon, telling Democrat Mayor Ted Wheeler he must prioritize public safety, or the feds will have no choice but to come.
Have you ever wondered what happens when you pour salt into a cabbage? The N remedy not only helps
come in and protect the city. Here's part of a fiery letter that he wrote. Quote, "You have stood by passively, arguing that the nightly violence will ultimately burn itself out. The evidence demonstrates otherwise. The chaos, destruction, and suffering in Portland are evils you can stop and must stop." Joining us now, Ken Cuccinelli with DHS. Sir, what kind of federal intervention are we talking about here? Federal troops in full battle gear, or what?
No, not troops. But this is a law enforcement failure, and it's a law enforcement solution. So the first responsibility in these communities is state and local for policing, but we're seeing Portland intentionally not and willfully not police to the extent needed to stop the violence, and thus the secretary's letter to Portland. We'd have to use extraordinary, unfortunately, federal authorities that we've avoided doing to this point. But as the president has made clear and the secretary in his letter, all those options are on the table. And you compare it to Kenosha, we saw the formula for a quick stop to violence, and that was with a Democrat mayor and a Democrat governor. Partisanship shouldn't have anything to do with this. This is straight law enforcement. It's a simple solution, and Portland and Governor Brown refuse to implement it.
We just had a report that the mayor, Ted Wheeler, is moving out of his own house and going elsewhere because his neighborhood is under threat. Have you had a response from Mayor Wheeler to the letter sent from DHS threatening federal intervention?
Not yet. We have not yet. He's probably busy picking out real estate agents. But this is
Mr. Secretary.
Yes, well, that's my natural state of being. But it also was only sent recently, so he has a history of responding to these things. And look, reality is going to catch up at some point. They've got to start doing the right thing. You've got a governor who has over 7,800 National Guardsmen at her disposal. She hasn't used one of them. And even Mayor Wheeler asked Governor Brown to bring in the National Guard in June, but he comes out and defends violence and defends Antifa and the anarchists, even as.
And what are they doing now? He has like a condo, I don't know how many stories it is, but they're now using fireworks to harass Wheeler.
They attack his own condominium complex.
There are reports that this is a well-funded operation, that there's somebody behind all of this. There's an organization behind all of this, that the rioters are being paid, the gear that they're using is being paid for. Are you close to finding out who is really behind this?
Well, I'm not prepared to say we're close. I will say there are hundreds of investigations running across the country, federal investigations running across the country that include those sorts of questions. And we also have, of course, legislators on Capitol Hill asking those sorts of questions as well. And as some of those committees start to look at this, they'll have a different set of authorities to bring to bear.
But hundreds of people have been arrested here.
They have.
Is anybody talking? I understand that one person was arrested in 3 different places.
Yes, and they draw special attention from us when they cross state lines. And that's been true in Portland, where you didn't have very many crossing state lines, but what you had was a lot of repeat offenders where you have a local DA who won't prosecute them. So we focus federal resources on that. Over half of the arrests in Kenosha, on the other hand, traveled from other places. When you cross state lines, you invoke other federal jurisdiction, and the opportunity for the federal government to prosecute you goes way, way up, and investigate how you got there, how did you fund it, and so forth. Sure. But because of the Fourth Amendment, we've got to respect the process, and we've got to have a certain level of evidence to begin using search warrants and doing those kinds of things to investigate the financing on the backside of this, and that's what we're doing.
Ken Cuccinelli, go to it, sir.
Yeah. And that's why they're tracking. That's also why they're going to track them. You got to follow the money. That's how you're going to get them. This is how you're going to find out who's funding all these riots. Now, a good point, a good guess is the usual Soros, unless there's somebody higher than Soros. It's a branch of Antifa, and who is run by a known communist. He is an author and he's very well known, let's just say, Oh gosh. So that's where we are. And I think I'm going to bring up the Project Veritas. And I'm going to fire that up probably next time I'm up or streaming. Sorry, it's been a long day. I've come off work. So it's kind of hard to keep energized, all right? Let's keep it going. So I'm going to try to get that together and show the Project Veritas, because it kind of explains a little bit where this man is coming from, because they are trying to follow the money and get the guys funding them. Then we have dipshit de Blasio.
Federal funds from lawless Democratic cities that have faced weeks of protests, including Portland, Seattle, Washington, and New York. The plan not sitting well with New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo slamming President Trump during a conference call. Listen to this.
Look, the best thing he did for New York City was leave. Good riddance. Let him go to Florida. Be careful not to get COVID. COVID ambushed New York due to Trump's negligence. He is the cause of COVID in New York. Changed his residence to go to Florida. Why? He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York. Forget bodyguards. He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. No, New Yorkers don't want to have anything to do with him, and he knows it.
Joining me now, Trump Organization Executive Vice President, son of President Donald Trump Jr. Don, your reaction.
Listen, I think it's pretty laughable when you have Andrew Cuomo, who by any medical metric had the worst performance of the coronavirus. That's before you get into him putting thousands of the elderly back into nursing homes, when the only thing we knew about corona was that the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions were the people most susceptible to it. The level of incompetence in New York is exactly why people are fleeing. The level of incompetence from this governor, he's literally number 50 out of 50 states by any bad metric in his response to the coronavirus. But because he'll give nice quotes like that to a mainstream media that hates Donald Trump, they're going to give him airtime and pretend as though he had a success. He talks about Florida. Florida has a larger population and a more elderly population than New York, and yet they have
Live TV from 85 plus channels with local sports and news. YouTube TV. Try it free.
The death rate of incompetent Cuomo. Now you saw last night in the New York Post the statistics for all of this incompetence that he's been trying to hide as it relates to the nursing home and many other decisions. Now, magically, That public information is not going to be available until November 5th, coincidentally, right after the election. I really hope that real people watching this stuff don't buy this, because I don't know about you. I understand the Democrat Party is the party of participation medals, but being number 50 out of 50 in dealing with a pandemic is not an accolade I'd want to be running on, but that's what this is, and they're trying to push him for future aspirations.
And on that note, because the Democrats couldn't get on board with extra rescue money, extra stimulus, the president stepped up with an extra, through an executive order, $300 per week for unemployment benefits, because the $600 disappeared at the end of July. And it was Governor Cuomo who dragged his feet in stepping up and signing up so unemployed New Yorkers would get that extra money. I digress. You raised the issue of Florida, and I'm going to tie this to the new Fox News polls. But in Florida, President Trump is still trailing in an average of polls in that state. This is a Republican-led state by the governor, and it's where Mar-a-Lago is. The president and the family spend a lot of time there, but Joe Biden is still leading by 3.7 percentage points over President Trump in Florida, according to the Real Clear Politics average. Why? How do you change that?
Honestly, I don't put much faith in polling these days, unfortunately. The reality is you've seen what these Joe Biden voters are doing across the country, what these Democrat voters, they're rioting, they're looting, the cancel culture that they push on anyone that pushes a conservative value. I honestly just don't think that people are going to be honest with any of these people. You've seen the economic results that the Trump administration has delivered for this country, negating decades of incompetence, bringing back manufacturing, unlike Joe Biden, who between his support of NAFTA, TPP, permanent trade status for China in the World Trade Organization, destroyed the American manufacturing, destroyed the American middle class. These are incompetent Democrat policies that, again, the media won't call out, but I had to. I mean, I literally wrote a book because in my 4 months of lockdown, I started analyzing all of the decisions of a half a century of Joe Biden's career. I mean, think about it. They're telling you now he's going to fix things. Now he's going to do it. Why do you wait a half a century, 50 years, to actually deliver for the American people when the policies that he's actually voted on, the policies he's actually pushed so heavily, did more to build China than they ever did for the United States?
I'm still going to ask you about some more polls, because we've got new Fox News polls out that show Biden ahead in 3 states that President Trump won in 2016. So if you look at them, Joe Biden is leading the president in Arizona, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. But at the same time, there's room in all 3 states for improvement. More voters approve of the president's job performance than back his reelection. How does the campaign convert those people who have a higher approval rating for his job but say they aren't going to vote for it? That's where the rubber has to meet the road for the campaign.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think the margins are what they say they are there, but that doesn't mean we don't have to work very hard. I mean, we are in an uneven and a very unfair playing field. When you have a mainstream media that's, 95.5, liberal, pushing all of those causes. So we have to work that much harder, that much more effectively. We're going to be on the ground. I'm basically on the road for the next 64 days.
If you own Apple stock, know someone who does, or have even thought about buying it,
I know other members of my family are, and I know my father's going to do that and bring that message to the American people directly, because the media is not going to do it for us.
Yesterday in North Carolina, the president encouraged North Carolina voters or residents to vote twice. Listen to this. I want to get your reaction.
So if you have an absentee ballot, or as I call it, a solicited ballot, you send it in, but I would check it in any event. I would go and follow it and go vote. And if it's not tabulated, you vote, and the vote is going to count.
Don, the New York Times immediately out with a headline that was on its front page this morning when I got up at 2 a.m. Talking about Trump encourages people in North Carolina to vote twice. It's illegal.
Well, of course they do that. And, they know he's doing shtick, but he's pointing out some of the obvious flaws. You have special elections that happen in New York State that 60 days later, they don't even know what happened. Magically, you've seen how this happens. The Republican wins. Oh, look, we found a box of thousands of ballots. Just one more than we needed to actually win, and they're all Democrat. What's going on with these systems is a disgrace. And I'm not the only one saying that. Jerry Nadler is on the record saying that in New York. We know that this is a failed system, this sort of the blind ballot system where we're going to mail 360 million people in America a ballot. We're going to hope that they still live at their former address. I had a friend who's the lieutenant governor. Her daughter lives in New York. She got 4 ballots to her apartment for the race that I was talking about earlier. 4. None of those people live there anymore, but I'm sure everyone's going to be very honest and not fill them in. Now, absentee balloting, we're okay with. Absentee balloting, where one person in a system that's already up and running and has been in many cases for many years, like Florida, you request it, you have an ID, it comes to your address, you then fill it in and send it back. We're 100% fine with that. But this notion that you're going to send out 360 million ballots to everyone in America and hope that there's not flagrant fraud is absolutely insane. So I think he's pointing out the hypocrisy of that, and we've seen what's happened in these elections lately.
Before we go, the hair do, hair don't controversy, I want to get your reaction. This goes right to your book. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she was set up after being caught on camera inside a California salon, not wearing a mask. The salon owner denying a setup, saying she's now getting death threats. This goes right to your book about liberal privilege. It's called Liberal Privilege, Joe Biden and the Democrats' defense of the indefensible. Your reaction?
Well, it's typical. I mean, this is exactly what goes on with the Democrats. They set rules for others that they don't have to follow themselves. I've said, Nancy Pelosi is the Marie Antoinette of the 21st century, whether it's that, and then trying to blame the store owner because Nancy wanted to violate the rules, because she wanted to break the rules, because she won't play by her own set of rules. It's somehow magically the store owner's fault. I mean, the gall is I don't know whether to be upset or impressed. I mean, it is that ridiculous, but that's how out of touch the Democrats are. That's why I wrote this book, because the media has refused to talk about the things that would be disqualifying if Donald Trump did them, that Joe Biden has done for a 50-year incompetent career.
We are being censored. America's new.
Okay, end of that one. So, God bless you. God bless President of the United States, Vice President. God bless the military. God bless the men and women of law enforcement. Please say a prayer for them. They have a hard job. They need everybody's support. God bless the men and women in the medical field who work every day to help us feel better. And they do the best they can. God bless the military and the Border Patrol and Coast Guard. You always gotta think of all of them. I appreciate everybody coming in tonight. Please follow on Periscope, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, sometimes YouTube, depending on when they decide to be mean, and on DLive. I will be back Sunday night at 10:30 for Fighting for the Republic, and I will have a guest, Ocean Nathan, will be joining me. Everybody have a great night. God bless. I appreciate all of you very much.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, man. It's been a long day.